Good morning and welcome to the February 24th meeting of the Committee on Special Populations. My name is Rita Montoya. I'm a board member at large and the chair of the Special Populations Committee. This year, our committee will continue to working to enhance the experiences of all of our special population students in all of our schools. We recognize that most of our special populations designated students spend a significant portion of their time in general education classes, and our mission is to understand who our special population designated students are and how they and their families navigate the school experience. So before we continue, I want to give my colleagues a moment to introduce themselves, and I'll start to my left.
Yes, good morning, buenos dias. My name is Grace Rivera Owen, and I represent District 1.
And to my right.
Good afternoon, Laura Stewart, representing District 4.
Thank you. And so today we'll review and approve the informational summary for the last meeting, which was on November 18th, 2025. Staff will then present on how MCPS identifies and serves emerging multilingual learners in our school system. I would like to ask my colleagues if they have any questions or concerns about the informational summary for November 18th, 2025 meeting. Nope, seeing none. If there are no concerns, we'll go ahead and begin our agenda. So I would like to welcome our MCPS team to the table. And if you could just take a minute to please introduce yourselves for the benefit of the audience as well as my colleagues.
Good afternoon. Catherine Morales, Associate Superintendent for the Division of Multilingual Education.
Good afternoon. Daniel Yip, Supervisor under Division of Multilingual Education, Supervisor for CFTs and SLIFE programming.
Buenas tardes, Raquel Carson, Supervisor in the Division of Multilingual Education.
Good afternoon, Margarita Borges, Director of International Admissions and Enrollment.
Good afternoon, Norca Padilla, Coordinator of International Admissions and Enrollment.
Hello, Nikki Porter, Chief Academic Officer.
Fantastic, thank you. So when you're ready, you can go ahead and begin.
Good afternoon. Buenas tardes, members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to present today on emerging multilingual learners in Montgomery County Public Schools. Next slide, please. Emerging multilingual learners represent one of the fastest growing and most diverse student populations in our district. They bring tremendous strength, linguistic, cultural, and experiential, and they are an integral part of who we are as MCPS. At the same time, ensuring their academic success is both a civil rights obligation under federal law and a critical component of our district's overall achievement goals. Today's report will provide an overview of who our emerging multilingual learners are, how their needs are evolving, and how the district is responding to ensure they have a meaningful access to grade-level instruction and opportunities to succeed. Over the past several years, MCPS has experienced shifts not only in the number of multilingual learners we serve, but also in student entry patterns. These shifts require coordinated, system-wide responses. Language development is foundational to every subject area. When students cannot fully access instruction due to language barriers, it affects academic growth, credit attainment, graduation pathways, and long-term outcomes. While our data show important areas of progress, they also highlight persistent challenges and uneven implementation of supports across settings. Addressing these challenges requires strengthening instructional practices, expanding specialized programs, building staff capacity, and partnering closely with families and communities. This presentation is intended as an informational deep dive. We will share data, describe current programs and services, discuss areas of need, and outline actions underway to improve outcomes for our multilingual learners. Our goal is clear that every emerging multilingual learner in MCPS has equitable access to rigorous learning, develops strong English proficiency, and graduates prepared for college, career, and civic life. Thank you, and we look forward to your questions and discussion. Next slide, please. Our work with emerging multilingual learners is grounded in a long history of civil rights, law, and research. Before the 1960s, students had few protections and limited access to grade-level instruction. The civil rights movement established education for emergent multilingual learners as an issue of equity and federal responsibility, leading to Title VI protections and accountability. Today, MCPS continues this legacy by ensuring simultaneous access to grade-level content and language development aligned to WIDA and federal requirements. We also affirm multilingualism as a strength and asset to our community. Next slide, please. Emergent multilingual learners in MCPS are a diverse group whose strengths enrich our schools. Students represent many languages, cultures, and countries of origin. Some enter in early grades, while others arrive later and must quickly adapt to new academic expectations. A subset have experienced interrupted schooling and require targeted supports. This diversity reflects the strength of the MCPS community. Next slide, please. I will now turn it over to Ms. Bojorquez.
Next, we will review how students enter MCPS and are identified, enrolled, and placed. This includes emergent multilingual learner identification, grade placement, and credit evaluations. Next slide, please. Identification for ELD services follows a state-required process to ensure consistency and equity. First, families complete a home language survey during enrollment to determine potential language needs. Secondary international students also receive a thorough review of foreign transcripts for proper grade placement and a comprehensive credit evaluation that transfers all credits earned abroad. Students then take an English language proficiency screener either at school or through the International Admissions and Enrollment Department to assess eligibility. If screened at IAE, the student then meets with an EML therapeutic counselor, or ETC, for a quick well-being intake. Parents are formally notified of results and services. Lastly, an accommodations plan is developed to support instruction and state assessments. Next slide, please. In an effort to honor our students' assets and educational attainment, the IAE department has significantly upgraded and streamlined the grade placement and credit evaluation process for students. Following a 3-year cross-functional collaboration with the Curriculum Office for Math, Science, Social Studies, and English, we developed a comprehensive global coursework database that ensures accurate grade placement in which students are now placed in their correct grade levels alongside their age-appropriate peers, set a clear graduation pathway due to improved data that allows for immediate, effective graduation planning, and centers student equity by acknowledging their previous academic rigor and affirming our students' identities to ensure they have immediate access to new and advanced learning. Next slide, please. I will now turn it over to Ms. Morales.
We will now review key data that provides a snapshot of our emergent multilingual learner population. Next slide, please. Over the past 6 years, MCPS has served a large and growing population of emergent multilingual learners. Enrollment rose sharply from about 25,400 students in 2021 to over 32,500 in 2025, with a slight decline this year. Despite this dip, enrollment remains significantly higher than in earlier years. Schools continue to serve newcomers and students entering at later grade levels across all grade levels. These trends inform staffing, program planning, and resource allocation. Next slide, please. Emergent multilingual learners are served across all grade levels, with the largest concentration at the elementary level. A smaller number of students are served in special programs. The vast majority participate in the ELD program, students with limited or interrupted formal education or SLIFE placements, and a small number of parent refusals. Some families exercise their right to decline English language development services. However, these students remain identified as emergent multilingual learners and are required to participate in the annual WIDA Access Assessment each year until they meet state exit criteria. This distribution highlights the need for strong supports across the entire K-12 continuum, particularly in early grades. Next slide, please. Emergent multilingual learners are distributed across all proficiency levels from entering or English Language Development Level 1, ELP1, to bridging, ELP4. The largest group of students is at ELP3, indicating many learners are progressing but still require support. A substantial number of students remain at ELP1 and 2, particularly in elementary schools. Students at higher levels continue to need academic language support to access grade level content. Next slide, please. I will now turn it over to Ms. Carson.
This slide shows the movement of multilingual learners into and out of MCPS during fiscal year 2025. Our EML population is dynamic, with significant movement throughout the year. In fiscal year 2025, over 6,000 students entered MCPS, including kindergartners, new arrivals, and transfers. At the same time, nearly 6,900 students exited due to graduation, transfers, or other factors. This resulted in a net decrease of 888 students that school year. Ongoing mobility requires flexible planning and responsive support across the system. Next slide, please. These tables illustrate the expected annual growth in English language proficiency based on students' initial access level, with the expectation that students will exit the program upon reaching an overall score of 4.5 within the timeframe established by MSDE. Schools earn points on the Maryland report card for each student that meets these growth targets. Generally, students at lower proficiency levels progress more rapidly, while growth tends to slow at higher levels of proficiency. The tables also indicate the typical number of years students may participate in ELD services before reaching proficiency. Achieving an overall score of 4.5 is considered evidence of English proficiency as defined by MSDE. Students who do not attain proficiency within the expected timeframe are identified as long-term emergent multilingual learners, which results in a loss of points for schools on the MSDE report card. These targets serve as critical benchmarks for our work and underscore the need to align systems and structures to ensure students can realistically meet expected growth trajectories. Next slide, please. Let's take a look at this chart. We see kindergarten through 12th grade students listed here. We are going to explain the difference between the data represented by the kindergarten bar versus the 1st through 12th grade bar. After taking their first WIDA Access assessment, kindergarten students can either meet the 4.5 WIDA Access score and exit ELD services, or continue to receive ELD services as they have not yet met the exit criteria. In fiscal year 2025, 107 kindergartners scored a 4.5 on their first WIDA Access, whereas 2,845 kindergartners had their baseline proficiency established with their first WIDA Access assessment score of 4.4 or below. Now let's shift and look at the 1st through 12th grade. The bars show the number of students who met or did not meet their English language growth targets. Results vary by grade level, with stronger outcomes in some elementary grades and greater challenges in upper grades. These findings highlight the need to strengthen systems and supports to accelerate language development. They also emphasize the importance of coherent K-12 alignment, as students who meet expectations in the elementary grades may face increasingly rigorous language demands in middle and high school, where proficiency targets become more difficult to attain without sustained, coordinated support across grade levels. Next slide, please. I will now turn it over to Ms. Padilla.
In contrast to the previous slide, which showed student growth to target, this slide shows exit rates for students reaching English proficiency over the past 4 years. Elementary exit rates remain the highest, while middle and high school rates are lower but improving. Exit rates increased slightly in 2024-25, particularly at the secondary level. The tables also show the number of students exiting each year, highlighting the scale of students transitioning out of English language development services. Next slide, please. Exit rates vary significantly by grade level. The highest exits occur in grades 4 and 5, where many students reach proficiency after several years of support. Exit rates are lower in early grades and again in middle and high school. Overall, about 10% of students exited the English language development program last school year. Next slide, please. This slide shows English proficiency attainment for emergent multilingual learners who are also identified for special education services. These students receive both language development and disability-related supports to access instruction. Next slide, please. I will now turn it over to Mr. Yip.
Long-term multilingual learners are present beginning 3rd grade with larger concentrations in middle and high school. Long-term EMLs are students who have not yet reached proficiency after multiple years in the program. The number of long-term EMLs increases in the upper elementary and secondary grades. Secondary schools serve a particularly high concentration, reflecting students who entered later or need extended support. These data highlight the importance of targeted content interventions on a student-by-student basis to accelerate progress and prevent long-term designation. Next slide, please. The data indicate that our work should be strengthened to support long-term EMLs, particularly those at English Language Proficiency Level 3. The expectations for students at ELP Level 4, which is close to exiting ELD programming, includes the use of, pardon the jargon, genre-specific organizational patterns and statement of position arguments as measured by the WIDA framework. Students at ELP 4 are able to produce language orally and in writing that reflect this. Here's a concrete example. For example, a 5th grade student might be able to use a sentence such as, "The civil rights movement was important because leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. organized peaceful protests and gave powerful speeches to challenge unfair laws and help African Americans gain equal rights under the Constitution." This kind of academic language needs explicit language instruction by content teachers in collaboration with ELD teachers and primarily occurs in the grade level content courses. ELD cross-functional team members, known as CFTs, and director teams are engaged with supporting content teachers at the school sites with a focus on students in these groups. Students in this group need more targeted support from content teachers as they may be demonstrating oral fluency, but continue to need explicit language instruction and feedback on academic language that primarily occurs in grade level content areas. Next slide, please. I'll now turn it over to Ms. Barroquez.
Next, we will outline our key priorities for ELD programming across MCPS. Next slide, please. MCPS is strengthening Tier 1 instruction so emergent multilingual learners can access grade-level content. This work emphasizes collaboration between content and ELD teachers to provide explicit language support within core classes. Educators are also building on students' background knowledge promoting academic discourse, and creating culturally responsive learning environments. Next slide, please. In practice, this means explicit teaching of academic language within grade-level content. Teachers setting clear content and language objectives and providing supports for access through making things comprehensible and allowing multiple ways of expressing understanding. Strong structures enabling collaboration between ELD and content teachers with shared responsibility for language development. Students benefiting from language-rich environments, structured discussion, and background building. Ongoing monitoring and use of data ensure instruction is adjusted and targeted support is provided as needed. Next slide, please. Can we click once more and play the video? One more. Thank you. MCPS is building educator capacity through ongoing professional learning focused on effective strategies for multilingual learners. Training emphasizes integrating language development within content instruction and aligning content and language objectives. Job-embedded coaching from the central office and school-based staff supports implementation. Collaborative planning structures and cluster collaboration strengthen consistency and impact across schools. Next slide, please. Next, we will highlight specialty ELD programs designed to meet the needs of specific student populations. Next slide, please. I will now turn it over to Ms. Carson.
Thanks. And I think this actually might be a good time to pause. There was a lot of data and a lot of charts, which I appreciate, but I do want to make sure that we have time to make sure that we have understanding and digest that before we get into programming. So I am actually going to let my colleagues start with questions first, but the one overarching thing I'm wondering, and it's slide number 15 really brings it to the forefront for me because we see this 4-year, these patterns and trends, and not in a good way, in my opinion. And so my overarching wonder is, then what are we doing that's new? Right? If what we were doing, that's not working, what are we doing that's new? But I want to go ahead and let my colleagues start. I don't know if one of you would like to start.
Going with that, specifically, I want to talk about our cross-functional teams and how do you see that as value added for this year? Because we really are going over most of our data from last year, yet we did move to the cross-functional team this year. So if we can incorporate that along with her question.
Okay. So thank you for all the information and so on, but I'm just going to go right to the point. How are our kids doing in EML? Are we doing better than other areas? Because my experience, at least in my district, is very different in different schools. And although I appreciate this data, I have questions about how the program is implemented across our county, across the system, and how faithful it's implemented in an equal way, per se. And this is why we have issues with some people saying, well, I want my kid to go to this school because I know they're going to cover more, and I want my child to go, to this other school because, and I'm trying to understand the equity issue of EML teaching. And I have not been able to get a very clear and concise answer. Because there are priorities in some schools for some principals, or they might have the expertise in some schools. But I just want to get a very clear idea of the ingredients. And my other question is, for the long-term EML students, if an EML student starts in kindergarten, I have a really hard time digesting why do you still have the same student as an EML student in 6th grade, in 7th grade, in 8th grade, and sometimes in 9th grade? Because there is absolutely as a former EML student, I have to tell you, there is something we're not doing. Because I came here, when I was 9 years old, and I was out of EML by 6th grade. So, and that was back in the 80s, when we didn't even have a lot of all these wonderful programs, right? And expertise and research and all that great stuff that we have now. So in my head, I'm thinking, well, we should be doing so much better, but yet we're not. So please help me understand, what is it that we're missing?
Thank you so much for the question and for also sharing your experience. I think that you touch base on a keyword, which is consistency. So when we're looking at programming and delivering ELD services to our students, we have to look at the K-12 continuum. Our goal this year and moving forward, as presented during the Board of Education meeting that took place on February 2nd, things go hand in hand, ensuring that we have the correct number of FTEs or ELD teachers to support the needs that we see, so that equitable and coherent development, service delivery development can be provided to each building. As to your question, reflecting and saying that some of our students are exiting in some schools and not in others. So that's a deeper dive. As you know, with all of this, we did a lot of research based on various states, California being the #1 state that exits the highest number of ELs per year. And in our development, as presented during that board meeting as well, we determined that we needed designated ELD services as well as integrated ELD services for our students. So moving forward, it will be a comprehensive support system that embeds professional learning, supports for students in content areas, ELD designated as well as integrated support, in order to ensure that there's consistency and we can monitor the progress as students move forward and along.
Can you please explain what that means for ELD to be designated versus integrated? What is the difference?
Sure. So when we talked about integrated services, we can also know that as pushing services. So you will have a content or a classroom teacher, or at the secondary mathematics or science, social studies, with the support of an ELD teacher as well. By designated, I mean support that is provided solely by the ELD teacher during a specific time of the day set aside to work on the standards for English language development.
Okay, so for example, like a pull-out or a designated class time for that versus I'm in social studies, it's in English, and I also have an ELD teacher in there to support me to work through that, right?
That is correct. We know, as you know, to meet the graduation requirements, our EMLs need to also attain the content credits, which is why this integrated support is necessary so that they can work together, language development and also content acquisition.
And so, I mean, let me just be frank, because all of you know I'm like that anyway, right? Is that new? Were we not doing that before? Like, I guess I think we're all kind of asking the same question here and incorporating the CFTs is, I mean, what is it that we were doing before that this is what this looks like? And what is it that we're doing now that is going to be different, for which we should hope to see different results? Because I'm actually also really concerned. I mean, our elementary schools seem like they're doing well, right? Once we get the kids in the trajectory, it kind of makes sense to me that maybe in kindergarten we wouldn't have a lot of kids exiting out. But as they progress, it looks like our numbers are fairly good. But that middle school swell is extremely concerning to me. Also, as a parent of a middle schooler, they are just dealing with so much already. And then to have it compounded in that way with language understanding challenges, I just can imagine, and I have to wonder if that contributes to maybe some of our behavior challenges and various things that we see at that level. And so I'm just wondering, are those kids who entered at 5th or 6th grade, are they kids who, for whatever reason, the elementary school ELD program, it could be maybe the school they were at, it could be whatever else was going on, just for whatever reason it just didn't work for them, but then I need us to figure out why.
So we will be able to provide additional data in regards to that question. Based on some of the internal information that we have, some of our long-term EMLs have been in ELD programming for several years here in MCPS.
Okay, but are we honing in? I mean, I'm glad that we can identify the patterns, right? But that's just the very initial step, right? Now we have to figure out, right? And so if that's the case, if you have some students that are starting in kindergarten or 1st grade, say, and in 7th grade, they're still not able to exit out, I mean, isn't that a subset of students that we need to kind of really hone in on and figure out, okay, well, what's going on here? What kind of supports, what are we missing? Right? Because it's very clear to me in your charts, again, which I appreciate, right? It's like we have this great arc up, and then it just bottoms out, and it's almost like there's no hope through high school. And I get concerned about even these transfer out, the exit out numbers where it says grade 12. Well, I presume that just means they're not in MCPS anymore. That doesn't necessarily mean they have a command of English proficiency, which is what we want to see, right? So yeah, I guess that's what I'm really looking for here is I think it's great we can identify, right? But that's just the flags. So then now what are we going to do to change what's been happening
And
thus
can you
far?
also talk to the ratio of student per teacher, and specifically in that middle school population? What is the ratio between, you know, how we have ratios for in general? If you could incorporate that, because I didn't see that in the presentation.
Sure. So we will incorporate the ratios that were proposed at the February 2nd board meeting. Right now, based on the Cal report that was presented and conducted in MCPS by the Center of Applied Linguistics, the ratios range from 1 ELD teacher to 21 students to 1 ELD teacher to 88 students.
In middle school?
That was K-12.
Okay.
And
And
it-
I would
and it-
assume it's the upper levels because generally that's where we raise.
That's what I was asking.
sizes.
If in middle school, we have an idea what the ratio is, and in high school, what is the ratio?
We will be able to disaggregate that data and provide it for you, yes.
Yeah, so the Cal report did show that we had a lot of variance. We've been working over the last several years to improve that, so it's closer to 1 to 40, 44.
Sorry, when you say variance, I apologize. Do you mean by school? So there could be one middle school that has 1 to 60 and one that has 1 to 40?
Yes.
It could be, yes, and
I
it
see
really
that.
depends on the number of EML students in the school. But we have really been working over the last couple of years to have a little more consistency with our ratios. And when we talk about the ratio, we're talking about not necessarily the number of students sitting in front of a teacher.
Right, a
We're
caseload.
talking about a caseload, right? I do want to also just respond to a few of your other questions. One, the first question you asked is, how are we doing? And our data, as we look at how our EMLs are doing across the district, we know that it is a service group that is really struggling and that we have not served to the best of our ability at this time. They are not making the growth that we would hope to see. That has been the case for years. After the pandemic, the performance level decreased, and we have really struggled as a district to move our EMLs. We recognize that this is an area of great concern, and it is an area that we also acknowledge is not just the responsibility of the ELD teacher. It is the responsibility of all of our teachers, and shifting that mindset has been a challenge for us as a district. So that is an area, as we look at the work of our cross-functional team members, they're not just supporting our ELD teachers, they are supporting our general education teachers with planning, with understanding how to meet the needs of EMLs in their classrooms, and also with our professional learning as a district. You know, we have, for the first time, a professional learning department, and so it's not just the curriculum office or the DMA office that is responsible for training through curriculum, but now we have collaboration with equity, with our school side of the house, where we have decided that we have in Tier 1, first instruction, everybody sitting in the space together, and making sure that it's an expectation that teachers are planning for students receiving services, whether they're EML services or special education services. It's an expectation that is happening, and it's not being left to an ELD teacher who may see the kids maybe 30 minutes, depending on the day. So we cannot just expect that one person is taking on that load. So we are, as a district, committing to making sure that everybody is receiving the training and having the expectation to plan and deliver that model. Another thing that we've done this year, the team has worked with our principals and our leaders around that EML growth target. You saw the black and white chart, and really understanding that every EML that walks in the door is coming with a different level of proficiency, and that their expectation for exiting is going to be different based on their level, their grade, how long they've been in receiving services. And so our principals and leaders are just beginning to understand, I need to set a different goal for this student, and they are really beginning to talk through what each student needs in order to exit. And they have been doing a great job of really highlighting for our leaders what it looks like when we talk about WIDA standards, when we talk about a level 4 to exit a student. We are actually talking about the type of learning that students who are taking the state assessment in the regular MCAP or literacy or math assessment, they are performing at the same level. And so that means that they need to have the same level of vocabulary, content knowledge, and exposure as a student who is a non-EML. That's why they do so well once they exit. But it is just an eye-opening learning experience for a lot of our leaders, and it's helping to raise that level of expectation in the classroom.
And so all of you know I'm not an educator, right? I didn't grow up in academia as many of you guys did in the education space. So pardon my ignorance sometimes on some of these questions, but are principals and staff not receiving this training in their programs, right? Like I was trained as a lawyer, you're trained to do certain things, and yes, we need updated, professional development the same way. It's just sounds concerning to me that it sounds like this is the first time that we're really providing that in this way.
When we are going through training, this may be an area that is touched upon, but it may not be an area where there's a lot of deep level of understanding. And so it's our responsibility once principals or others take on that leadership role to make sure that they are really considering this on a day-to-day basis. Our district is changing, and they need to make sure that they are changing with it in terms of the expectations of what's happening. There's no school anymore in MCPS where we don't have a large number of EMLs, and everybody needs to put this as a priority. Special education students, same, as a priority with their first instruction. It can't be.
It's not a separate side
it's not
thing.
A side, right.
Just so I appreciate the explanation. I'm still baffled by the fact that we are in 2026 and we're talking about this topic of making sure that every special education child and every EML child is a child of every adult in that building. From the moment that child gets on the bus, right? to the moment that child's buying lunch, they're part of the fiber of that building. So, you know, I was taught in that isolated way because there was like 4 of us who were EML at my school. Not because, it did not make sense to have a class. So you forward that almost 50 years. Oh my God. I'm old. And I'm just like, things have really not gotten that great. And I just want us to get this right. I'm looking, it's almost 31,000 kiddos that this touches. So you're right. There's no longer a school that is designated, as an EML. Every school has special education children and it has EML kids, and they should be touched the same way, with the same rigor, and with the same. There's a word in Spanish. It's ganas, like this willingness, right? It's hard to translate it, but challenging every child to be their best, right? Without really dividing them into groups, but that inclusivity. So when I'm looking at these numbers, can you tell me out of the 31,000 plus, how many are long-term EML kids out of that? Sorry, there was a lot of graphics, so I'm gonna make you guys do the math. I'm so sorry, yeah. Better you than I. Yes. But while you're doing that, the reason, and I'll tell you why I'm asking. The reason I'm asking is because I do understand that there's a lot of young adults that come into our system with interrupted education. I get that. I think we all do. I guess my question is the long term of kids who are born here, right? And they're long term. And if we know who they are, and if we know where they are, shouldn't we not be doing everything we can to ensure that that transition is made? I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be embarrassed for the system if you guys tell me, well, there's a large number of those kids who were born here, they're long-term, and they're still in EML in middle school or high school. Shame on us. So I want to see what we're going to be doing differently. Please tell me. I want to see a little ray of hope here. What are we going to be doing differently to ensure that we get this better? Because whether we like it or not, the opportunities, and this is about opportunities, folks, the opportunities get less and less and less. Because then, even though they come out of EML and, now they're playing catch up with their peers constantly. And then you add dyslexia to it, or you add, another barrier that they may have. They're playing double. They're trying to catch up. So I'm trying for us to even the playing. So help me out here.
So just to provide you with that number, as of February 12th, is 6,173 long-term EMLs.
That's a big number. So I just want to know what the plan is. And I'm sure you can, even from that, you can desegregate it.
And that's K through 12? Or is,
Not K through 12, so we see the numbers starting in 3rd grade currently.
okay, so this is just anyone that could be from 3rd through 12th?
3rd grade to 12th grade. That is
Okay, and I may follow up with some data requests just to break some of these down, just so that we can understand a little bit more, pinpoint some things. Ms. Stewart, did you have some questions?
Hi. So I wanted to ask about universal design for learning, because a lot of what I'm hearing is a lot of what I hear from also special education, and that all kids can really benefit from universal design. And so can you talk about how you incorporate any of that into our methodology, or plan to?
Sure. So when we mention a Tier 1 instruction is really where it's at, we're being serious. Tier 1 instruction is ELD, a culturally a culturally responsive form of instruction to the extreme. So when we say culturally responsive instruction, teachers know who the students are, their capacities, their abilities. They know how to get them to understand the content in lots of different ways, and they know how to get them to express the content in lots of different ways in their understanding. ELD is very similar to that, except that the cultural distance between the teachers and the students might be in some cases even greater. So they need to have even more awareness about who the student is and where they need to go. But the target is ultimately still the same. They need to get access to the grade level content. And that's really what we're trying to aim to do. It's Tier 1 instruction for all teachers to be able to work with EMLs no matter who the student is and their proficiency level or their backgrounds.
You mentioned earlier about integrating the ALD student and the teacher in the classroom in a mix of ways to do that, group activity or maybe a pullout. And do you track for students, like what is the mix a student is getting? And is there a way to then say, okay, this mix of services seems to really elevate a student through the levels, and therefore can we use that integration more broadly if it's being successful? I guess I'm trying to, again, what we're getting at is what are we doing different? Are we learning? And what's the plan to grow our capacity?
Absolutely. So something that we that was presented based on the staffing standards work groups, and that we recommended based on the ratio that was also presented, is that we would like the integrated courses to not exceed 50% of EML enrollment, so that there's a good ratio between EMLs and non-EMLs. Of course, that is when feasible, because as you know, we may have buildings that may have more than 50% EMLs as a capacity. So we will have to look at that closely, but that will be the recommendation moving forward for integrated settings.
And when you talk about the teacher training and how that is going, I don't know if you have any idea, but what percentage of teachers do you think have actually received the kind of training that they need to actually have this integrated approach in their classroom?
That's something to investigate, is how many teachers received certification through taking an exam such as the Praxis versus how many educators came to us with their certification from a program that specialized in something such as TESOL.
I think that would be good information to get, so then we know where are we starting at and where do we want to be, right? Not just with results from our students, but also so our teachers are prepared to get our kids to that result.
And in addition to that, we have been holding ELD listening sessions over the past few weeks, and we have a couple more, in addition to elementary, middle, and high school principals as well. And one of the topics that we touched upon was the professional learning that they feel it is needed to continue to develop our teachers, not only ELD teachers, but also classroom and content teachers as well.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just follow up on that? Are there any required ELD trainings that our staff has to do currently? Not that they have an option, but that it is required.
We don't have any required ELD training for all staff, Tier 1 training, no. We have decided that we are going to do summer training for all staff coming up this summer with ELD and special education services at the forefront. So we'll be rolling out training for teachers, focused on something that we have used for years, but we're elevating again, which is the skillful teacher components. And we are going to make sure that our EML and special education service models are elevated in those trainings for all of our staff this summer.
Is that required?
That will be required
Okay.
tier one training.
And that's going to be over this summer
That, yes,
for our teaching staff.
correct.
What about for our other staff? Central office, para-educators, principals.
So
What
we're,
about
we're going to start with central office. We're actually starting before the summer to make sure that they are equipped to support schools throughout the summer and beyond. So we're starting with them, and then we'll also focus on our principals. We want to make sure that they have that background and training. Then we'll do the teachers this summer. We will have to, I'm not certain about when paraeducators will be trained because of the mandatory component, so I can get back to you on that. But our goal is for everyone to be trained using that skillful teacher model and have EMLs and special education as the focus.
Okay, thank you. Because I know paraeducators ask for training, which is amazing, which is great. But I'm concerned that if we only train one side of, but we don't train from the top down, sometimes priorities come from the top, not from the middle. So I just want to make sure that, and we also have a lot of new principals to the system. And like you said, we no longer have schools that, are EML, like all schools have EML students. So thank you. So again, to my question of how are we doing today? Like today, if you were to say to me, and maybe Ms. Bojorquez can answer some of this with our international students. I want to know how they're doing today. And what is it that we need to do to support them? Whether it's staff, whether it's training. It might be something simple that we have not thought about. I just want to know how are kids doing in this environment that is a very negative environment. To be an immigrant, to be Latino, is not the most welcoming thing. And our kids are feeling it. Not only personally, in a sense, but they're seeing their own family members being harassed, being asked for papers, being stopped. Some of their friends' parents are being deported. They're feeling it. So I want to know, how are we doing today?
So I can definitely speak to our newcomers, our students who are new to the country within the last 2 years, of which 86% do qualify for ELD services. And the best way I can respond to that question is just really having wraparound services. It's not just about instruction, which of course is critical for supporting this population. But to your point about all the additional challenges around immigration, having the ETC team support them on a well-being, social emotional level, having the resources and the connections to the community with our community partners so that we're able to support them with basic needs and with any immigration challenges, supporting the schools, making sure that they're in the know of what they need to provide to support this population. So it definitely does require a well-rounded and a village, just to quote that saying, but it really matters to have the school central office teams and the community, the counselors, all of our central office teams supporting this population. But yes, we're facing pretty severe challenges right now. We heard about a student just this morning whose parents are being deported, and so we deployed some ETC support there, and we'll connect them to the community for that as well.
And I appreciate all the work that you do, your department, and all the teachers who really care every day for but that also has a big impact emotionally on our staff. And I also think it's important to ensure that our staff has that moral support, your team and others who work day by day. And make no mistake that a child who's lost a parent or both parents, they're going to have a hard time learning, folks. They're not going to be totally there to be able to complete their work, because they're probably going to have to get a job themselves if they're at that age of being able to work and help the family pay the bills. So all this compact of issues have an impact on our children and the learning that they do. So I just want to make sure that, we're talking about education and learning and math and testing and all these things, but there is this whole other component that is rocking the lives of thousands of our children, and not just our EML children, our children in general who have friends. Our children have friends from all over, and they feel the pain, and that has an impact in the classroom. And I want to make sure that this team is able to also be strong. I want to make sure that you take care of yourselves and of your teams as well. But you guys are kind of like the front line soldiers in a sense, that people are going to look to you, right, for guidance and how to deal with everyday issues. So I just want to commend you and thank you, because I know these are long hours for a lot of you, and you have been doing this for a long time.
So before we move on to talking about the programs, I just want to see if there's any other questions about the data charts that we have so far, or how students are identified. I have one question about identification of students, and you actually mentioned it was perfect teeing it up, because you said about 86% of our newcomers end up qualifying for ELD services. So if I'm in that 14%, and maybe I come in and I'm like, nope, I got it, I'm English proficient, and then as I'm going through, maybe I'm now getting into middle school, and English language arts gets a little more complex and a little more nuanced. Is there any mechanism for identifying a student that might need a touch-up or a refresh? Or maybe, I know some students who maybe they did get English language development services in another country because maybe their family has a job where they're traveling to different countries, right? So I'm just wondering, how do we check in with students? Maybe they exited the program already, but do we check in with them later? Or students who maybe came in from somewhere else where they spoke another they spoke another language initially, but they do speak English. And maybe as they advance throughout their studies, they may be in need of a little bit of support because, again, the English language just gets a little more complex and nuanced.
Sure.
Or let me add one more thing. Or perhaps they think they don't need support, but maybe there's a teacher that's like, maybe they could use a little support.
So as it pertains to the identification of students, I believe you know that students have to complete the home language survey during enrollment, and based on the responses to those questions, we then flag them for actual screening.
But that's only if they are literally have an address that is not, right? What if I was
all students who enroll have to answer the home language survey.
I don't recall that myself. I'm trying to remember,
Yes.
but maybe.
That's part of the enrollment process.
Oh,
So
interesting.
every single student in MCPS must answer.
Actually, I'm recalling now because I put on there that we speak Spanish
Yes.
and English, and they actually tried to put my child
Yes.
in Spanish language automatically without
Yes.
any, and I was like, no, we're good.
Yeah, that happened to me and my son as well, back when he was in kindergarten. But yes, every student who enrolls in MCPS has to respond to the home language survey. Based on those responses, we screen them with the WIDA screener, and based on how they score, we admit them into ELD programming, or they don't qualify because their English is high enough. So for students who don't qualify because they tested strongly initially, those students are just admitted as non-EMLs, and they have access to the regular programming. But for students who come in higher, then there's a level of monitoring and support that we give them.
So just to add to that, so every single student in MCPS, we progress monitor how they're performing in academics, whether it is ELA, math, social studies, ELD if they are identified as an emergent multilingual learner. So that data will be collected to ensure that the support's necessary for whether it is the student or classroom teacher or collaboration from departments, social workers, the school teams are all integrated to support that particular student.
But how do we know, what if we have a student who is not flagged as needing ELD support services, right? They filled it out, maybe they came here in, 4th, 5th, 6th grade. If they're from somewhere else, maybe they had a language that was not English as their first language, but they speak English, and they're in their, ELA class, they're getting a C+. And so for our school, we would be like, well, they're hitting their target. There probably wouldn't be a flag for a parent or anything like that because that's considered a passing grade, not in my home, but in MCPS. But how do we know that that student might not be able to get a B+ or an A, and maybe they're having some struggles, but it's not recognized in that way because we think that, well, they scored high enough or scored low enough, I guess, on the home language survey, right? But maybe they are struggling in part because the English language is getting more complex and nuanced, and they didn't get support in that way. They got it when they were in kindergarten and first grade for kindergarten and first grade level. You kind of get where I'm going with this? And so I just get concerned about, and then this goes back to the training, right, of making sure our general education staff are trained to be able to issue spot, as we call it in law school, right? If you can just identify the issues, then you can try to get some support there. But are we making, what about all the students already? Because our staff have not received that training, or maybe some have, some haven't, right? It's piecemeal. So I guess, I can appreciate that maybe we have so many challenges and barriers to address that might not have been one we've looked at now, but I just want to kind of put that on your radar as to that there may be students, and they may not even be Spanish first language students or Amharic first language students. It might be European languages. It might be Asian language. I mean, just to really be mindful that we have so many students who speak so many different languages in so many different spaces, and so to really make sure that our staff can, flag that. Thank you.
Yeah, I can just respond that does kind of take the student out of the EML world, and really it is the expectation of schools to monitor students, all students, and make sure that there is a plan for them to be proficient. One of the things that I know Dr. Taylor really wants to make sure we are doing it now and into the future is having a very strong communication system with our families about how students are doing, even through secondary, because we tend to do that more at the elementary level. And
yes, we do.
But particularly in math and literacy, but I think he's thinking of the core four, that we are communicating with our families and coming up with a mechanism so that they clearly understand where the child is performing. Sometimes we get into a lot of education jargon, or the graphs are a little bit more complicated to understand. And so we are working through with some other offices how we can clearly communicate with families, progress, what we are doing on our end, and then also what parents providing them with some things, that tools and resources that they can do.
Exactly where I was going to go next.
Yeah, so that's what we're working on for next school year, but we're designing that with shared accountability, and with our equity team, and also working with some of our community members to get feedback on language. Does this resonate with you? Does this make sense? And those types of things. So that is a work in progress.
Thank you. So if there's no other questions on those points.
Just very quickly, the vetting of international students or students who come in are still, before, you could go to your high school and sign up, and the vetting was done at the high school.
Do you mean the enrollment of
the enrollment,
newly
yes.
arrived?
Yes. That is done specifically now in your shop.
So newly arrived students to the country have been coming through our office for years, and they continue to do so. You might be thinking of transfer students coming in from other counties and states.
That's a concern, yes.
Yes, so that's an interesting, and we're excited about an upgrade we're making for next year, where we will be enrolling transfers directly through our office. instead of
Thank you.
having them go to schools, and that way we can wrap around them and really give them all the services that our international students receive.
I really appreciate that change, because I think that's where we also lose some of our kids in that process, because with all good intentions, I don't think some of our schools are equipped to do that kind of vetting. And then we lose kids in that process. So they're all going to be going through for you
Yes.
guys, and then you'll be doing the support. Okay,
Yes.
awesome. Thank you.
And is that where, go
I
ahead.
just wanted to
Yeah.
clarify that, yes, that will be for grades 1 through 12, not for kindergarten.
Okay.
Next year.
Okay. Let me just throw a whole nother factor in this, because this is how we do it here in this committee. So we have students who come in and they might need English language development support. Would that also be the space where they might get identified as gifted and talented, or things of that nature, right? I know we kind of talk about these things here in the committee as this one, as if someone couldn't be all the different special populations and gifted and talented, and so I just want to make sure, when I was in college, I tutored elementary school children. And they were children, then they called it English as a second language, who spoke English as a second language, Spanish and Russian. And their teachers thought that these 3 young girls were not that smart. And it's because they couldn't read the directions for the math problem. And I think about them all the time because they were brilliant children. And once they learned how to read English, then they showed everyone their brilliance, because they can't read the math word problem if they can't read English. And so I think about them a lot. And I just want to make sure that we are not limiting the opportunities that are being made available to all of our children who speak different languages, who quite frankly may be far more qualified for some of these opportunities than many of us who maybe don't speak that many languages, right? So I just want to make sure that we're not just so hyper-focused on, well, they need this, that we're not looking for all the other supports they may need, and their families. I had never heard of Gifted and Talented, and I spoke English since I was a child, right? So even without that barrier, there are things that some parents don't know about. So I just want to make sure that we're finding a way, and we can maybe have some conversation offline, Margarita, about talking about, integrating that into the International Center, but also into any other ways that our students come to our system. Thank you. And if you want to go ahead and proceed with the programs.
Just wanted to touch on the point that you brought up regarding the accelerated and enriched instructions. So over the past year, our office has collaborated with the AEI team to think about what opportunities within the current system that exists for the identification of gifted and talented, what can we do to ensure that our EMLs are receiving equal access? What additional data points can be looked at, and how can we assess the current system so that a student is being looked at as the whole child? So nothing is finalized or concrete, but I just wanted to indicate that those conversations have been occurring.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. That way the community also understands that we are thinking about these things. We are trying to work on these things, even if we can't see them concretely right now. Thank you.
Okay, so as Margarita mentioned, we are going to highlight some of our specialty ELD programs designed to meet the needs of specific student populations. MCPS's two-way immersion program is grounded in research-based principles of dual language education. Our 6 schools implement a 50-50 model with content instruction delivered in both Spanish and English. Students learn together and develop bilingualism, biliteracy, and cross-cultural competence. Let's hear the voices of 2 of our two-way immersion educators to talk about the benefits of the program in their communities. Click, please. One more time.
Rolling Terrace for 16 years as an ELD teacher, a reading intervention teacher, and a dual language coach. I think the dual language program here is so beneficial for all our students, the students that speak Spanish at home, as well as the students that speak English or other languages at home. When they graduate from our school in 5th grade, they are bilingual and biliterate. They can speak, read, and write in English and in Spanish. This is such a gift to them. It will support them throughout their academic career and their future as adults, whatever they decide to do. It will give them professional, social, and cultural opportunities they wouldn't have in a monolingual program. Esa es una de las razones por qué el programa de lenguaje dual es tan importante para nuestra comunidad.
Now we'll hear from the reading specialist at Washington Grove. I think you have to click, and yeah, thank you. Click on her face, the one on the right. We'll give it like, okay.
That's okay. Well,
Yeah,
while we work
yeah.
on that, let me just ask a quick question. I'm very familiar with Rolling Terrace. My children started their MCPS journey at Rolling Terrace. I know then one of the challenges that some families were having is that, especially in that area, we had a very large Amharic-speaking community. And so then you had children who were learning English, Spanish, and Amharic, and it was a lot for them. Am I correct? I believe now families can try to ask for a COSA to go to a different school in case that's a challenge that might be too unapproachable for them. Is that correct?
A family can identify beginning in 2nd, 3rd, 4th, or 5th grade. And we see some of our most successful, actually trilingual students are those that enter the program in kindergarten and 1st grade with a language like Amharic. But yes, that's correct. Families can request for a unique hardship COSA.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, my name is Laura Hahn, and I'm the reading specialist at Washington Grove Elementary School. I've been the reading specialist here since 2014, so I have experience working with our school as both a monolingual school and as a dual language school. Since becoming a dual language school, I have seen our school community come alive. Many families feel more comfortable volunteering and engaging in school activities. Many of our students thrive when given the opportunity to embrace their home language or learn a 2nd or even 3rd language like some of our students are doing. It's so rewarding to see students make cross-linguistic connections to support their learning and grow as multilingual learners. Supporting biliteracy development honors students' linguistic and cultural identities, which in turn promotes equity and access in a way that monolingual schools cannot. I'm honored to work with such a diverse staff who make learning in 2 languages meaningful and fun for our students and families.
Thank you to Susan and Laura for sharing their voices with us. Thanks. It's slide 26 that we're on. Thank you. Here we see data reflecting the biliteracy of current 3rd graders across all 6 2A immersion schools. These students have been in the program since kindergarten, and we are looking at their progress as measured by DIBELS and Lectura. More than half of current 3rd grade EMLs moved out of the at-risk status in both English and Spanish between kindergarten and 2nd grade. 3/4 of the current 3rd grade EMLs who have been in programs since kindergarten exited at risk in either English or Spanish. This means that the students went from performing well below grade level in one or both languages to slightly below on grade level or above grade level. These results demonstrate the effectiveness of 2-way immersion in promoting bilingualism, literacy, and academic success. Next slide, please. I will now turn it over to Mr. Yip.
The Students with Limited Interrupted Formal Education program is also aligned to the WIDA framework, highlighted by the four big ideas at the top right. In order to attain equity for students with limited or interrupted formal education, SLIFE programming aims to get students operating at less than 2 years of their current grade level in math and literacy within 20 academic months. Students can be identified for SLIFE upon enrolling in MCPS at the international office or once enrolled at their school in collaboration with the Division of Multilingual Education. The criteria are as follows. They are an active EML performing at ELP 1 or 2. They have a documented 2+ consecutive years of interrupted schooling before enrolling in U.S. schools. They're also screened for math and literacy and have a 2+ year grade level below academic need that has been documented by the screener. SLIFE enrollment has seen a significant decrease over the years across all grade levels. 469 total in years 22 to 23, down to 140 in years 25-26. This can be partly attributed to the tightening of the identification process, curricular alignments, and exits, but mostly it's in proportion to the significant drop in students arriving via the international office as newcomers with complicated educational histories. Details can be found in the addendum, but there's a profound drop rate in our older high school students' enrollment in SLIFE programming. Programming is done through a functional academic lens in 3 through 12 environments using intensive culturally and linguistically responsive content instruction that uses what the students do have to bridge to the grade level targets. Let's see some specifics of the how. Next slide, please. Here's what the SLIFE program looks like at a glance as aligned to the WIDA 4 big ideas. In terms of equity, grades 6 through 12 students are enrolled at one of the 22 SLIFE sites across the county and are provided specialized SLIFE coursework in literacy and or math, depending on need. 3 to 5 students enroll at their homeschool site and get supported there with classroom teachers, ELD teachers, and content intervention teachers working in collaboration with SLIFE coaches. Integration, certified math teachers in grades 6 through 12 and classroom teachers in grades 3 through 5 give students access to priority math standards so they can connect to what is going on at the grade level as soon as possible. Grades 6 through 12 teachers bridge home language literacy skills to English or develop first-time English literacy skills. In grades 3 through 5, classroom teachers and or literacy teachers develop English literacy in collaboration with ELD teachers. Collaboration. In grades 3 through 12, SLIFE programs are supported with the 6 SLIFE coaches who are central based and distributed amongst all the different sites across the county, in conjunction with content leaders at schools, the teachers themselves, and interventionists. ELD cross-functional team members support the alignment of SLIFE programming into the greater ELD program at the school under the direction of the school director and the ELD supervisor. And then finally, functional approach. Professional learning for SLIFE programming is content curriculum specific, with a focus on how to transfer student skills and experiences to U.S. mathematics and literacy classroom environments. Certified math teachers provide instruction for grades 3 through 12 math, and ELD teachers provide literacy support in collaboration with content teachers. All this is so that SLIFE students can see the support in grade level curriculum now, rather than seeing something separate that doesn't transfer to their other grade level content classrooms. Next slide, please. As a program, we continue to refine the program goals to be in closer alignment with WIDA so that students can get what they need and exit the program. We will build the capacity of content teachers to support language development and language scaffolding in every setting, much similar to the way we're trying to do it with ELD programming. We will build the capacity of teachers to get creative in having students make sense of what's presented and also be able to express what they know without over-reliance on whole-scale translations of lessons. For SLIFE students, there's also power in seeing consistent structures and topics with different teachers and in different environments. We will better align SLIFE, reading intervention, core ELD instruction, and post-SLIFE instructions so they are complementary to one another rather than being different topics and concepts of instruction. Next slide, please. Let's look at a middle school example of SLIFE program impacts. One 8th grader at Julius West Middle School arrived 9 months ago, performing at a kindergarten literacy level Under Principal Craig Staton's leadership and asset-based instruction by the Julius West team, she made 3 grade levels of growth in just 9 months, narrowing her literacy gap from 7 years to 4. I'm going to ask you to show the video, please, but it requires captions be turned on in the bottom right when you maximize the video.
معلمم مسکین خیلی خوب است ولی بهتر برام یاد داده من اعتماد به نفسم بالا رفت اون دانه به دانه برام میگفت و من وقتی که من می نویسیدم میگفت یک جا غلط میکردم میگفت این حروف چیه باز من میگفتم فهمیدم این حروف اینه و پارسال اینقدر یاد نداشتم ولی امسال یاد داشتم که مسکین برام بهتر کمک کرد و دانه دانه برام توضیح داد که این چیه و اون چیه و من الان خوب شدم. من ازش تشکری میکنم و این خانومی که آمدن برام کمک کردن منم از اینا تشکر میکنم. و سیوم اینه که معلمام بهترین کمک میکنن و در صنف ساینس که استادم اون درس را میگه اون چیه این چی هست و در هیستوریم و در ریاضیم همینطوره که استادم چی جوری میگن برام.
And while the slide deck gets pulled back up, I do want to plug the ETCs who dropped everything to pull all that wonderful language out of the student and really get her talking about her experience. Slide 30, please. Okay, so what a successful SLIFE course model looks like is learning language and subjects together. We're going to be expanding collaboration. Our SLIFE coaches now work at both the elementary and also the secondary sites, middle school and high school, supporting planning and instruction with the ELD CFT supporting the whole ELD program. These SLIFE coaches are working directly with teachers in planning and modeling, as well as working with other teachers that support those students. In addition, it means making sense and expressing in different ways. We're using visuals and hands-on tools to bridge language differences between what the student already knows and brings to the table to what's going on in the U.S. classroom. We're also connecting to big ideas for academic contents, filling in skill gaps while maintaining access to grade-level concepts so the student doesn't fall further and further behind. And then finally, focusing on the whole child, not just the label. Teachers need to be able to unpack the full academic history of a student, consider their language domains of strength, their content areas of strength in their first and home languages and cultures, and recognize that they are more than just a level 1 SLIFE student. Now, finally, let's hear from the actual classroom teacher, Ms. Min Kim, the student's current teacher, speak about the SLIFE coursework this year. Please maximize that second view. Thank you.
Student M started as a 7th grader in late December of 2025. It wasn't until May of the following year that she was identified as a SLIFE student, a student with interrupted education. This followed many months of struggling through her classes and really not making the growth as an English learner that's new to our country. In 8th grade, we were able to start together in the reading class, and the first administration of the MAP bar, she scored 183, which is not terribly bad for a student who has just came into the United States. And then in the winter administration, she scored a 211. She was super excited when she came to me after the testing day and told me that she had increased by 28 points. She has been a student that is a joy to work with. She is a hard worker. She and I have a great relationship, and it shows when she comes in. She's excited to learn and do the work that we have each day. And I think the growth really points to and speaks to how when everything comes together, when the proper instruction, the relationship is there, and the hardworking student come together, what can happen. We're super proud of student M, and we look forward to seeing more growth in her and seeing more growth in all of our students as we give them the proper instruction and make the relationships with them.
Thank you. Next slide, please, and I'll now turn things over to Ms. Broques.
Thank you, Daniel. Last but not least, in addition to the academic programming previously presented, I will now highlight one of the ways in which we support EML student well-being. A cornerstone of our student support framework is our distinguished team of 22 EML therapeutic counselors, or ETCs. Their primary mission is to cultivate psychological safety as necessary for academic engagement. ETCs provide specialized trauma-responsive interventions directly within school communities. Additionally, the team meets with every EML student at enrollment to conduct a well-being check that helps us identify any challenges that must be addressed by the student's school counselor and/or referred to a community partner. Let's hear from a middle school EML student and an EML graduate who share how invaluable their ETC support has been for their well-being and their academic success.
Miss Lee worked with me so many times when I was in 6th and 7th grade. She helped me when I was having a hard time with my friends, and she come to have a meeting with me and my friends to solve that conflict between us. Something that I learned that in Miss Lee groups that I can speak up for myself and I can help other people, not only me, and I cannot have fear to speak up and like help others pass through that because I already passed that. Thank you.
Yes, please. Thank you. This is an...
Hello, my name is Tina Zacharias. I am originally from Eritrea and I came to the US 2021 and it's been 4 years since I got here. Also, I am a freshman in college. I go to MBC. I started as a freshman in high school at Bethesda Churches High School, BCC, and Miss Nazareth was my counselor, I would call. And she was always there whenever I needed her, and as always, whenever I had a question, whenever I needed something, I just had to ask or email, and she would always respond. And also at that, like whenever I needed guidance, she was the one to like guide me through everything. And it was such a good experience for me because she made me feel so comfortable to text her anytime, to email or anything. And also like it just felt like home because she's really warm, welcoming, and all that. And not only with the school, she really helped me through my mental health and all of the things I needed in school as a new student or as an immigrant student that doesn't really know anything about the US. And honestly, it's really something that I would recommend everybody to do it, to like actually ask her any question, to be able to talk to her about anything, because like I said, she will always be there for you guys. And don't feel shame, don't feel bad, don't feel low or anything. You're literally as the same as the students in there. You just need a little help because you're new to the country, and there is always a first time to everything. So that's such a good experience, and it's really a good thing to have her by y'all's side, because like I said, she helps a lot, and it will be a great experience for you guys for anything, college recommendations, anything, guidance, anything you guys need. Like I said, even mental health help. So I would absolutely recommend everyone to be able to have her, or to be able to talk to her. And thank you so much. I wish everybody to have a good day, and bye.
Next slide, please. I will now turn it over to Ms. Morales.
So what actions is MCPS taking to strengthen instruction, supports, and systems to improve outcomes and ensure multilingual learners have full access to grade-level learning? Next slide, please. We are building educator capacity to scaffold students to grade-level standards. We are empowering teachers to use the WIDA framework to support language development within content instruction. We are monitoring progress in both language and content in an integrated way. We are strengthening administrator capacity to support collaboration. We are aligning staffing models to ensure grade level access with dedicated language development time across kindergarten through 12th grade. Next slide, please. Thank you for your engagement. We welcome your questions, comments, and feedback, and we look forward to continuing this work in partnership to support our emerging multilingual learners, educators, families, and communities.
Thank you so much. And just to, for everyone's awareness, there is an addendum containing just a little bit of information specific to some questions that I had asked. And then also just fleshing out what some of these things mean, like parent notification letter, for example, some keywords and phrases. So I appreciate that information there for everyone, whether it's the community or my colleagues. I do have some data requests. But I want to go ahead and give my colleagues a chance to ask any questions based on what you presented. And then I think at the end, we'll just go ahead and do some data requests so that my staff can also record that as well. So Ms. Rivera-Oven.
Yes, if we could talk a little bit about the students with interrupted formal education for a little bit. The S-Life, I think that was, it's not a number on my page, but thank you. Thank you so much for bringing that to our attention. This is one of those groups of young people that keeps me up at night. I'll tell you why. Because I see them dropping out of school quite often. Not because they don't want to be in school. It's because we're asking them to do so much, literally to catch up a whole life of education. Because of all the standardized testings and everything that we do, that's really impossible. So they sit there, and if you were to ask principals like I do, I think this is one of their biggest pains, especially for high school principals, because there's really not much more they can do for these young people. And this is why I am so big in alternative programs, whether we can get them into a GED program early on, or we can get them into a program where they can learn a trade and be part of that, because we lose them without them getting even a high school diploma. And then if you want to go back and get a GED, it's costly. So that's why I wanted a little bit more information about this group. There's really no data that you gave me or that you gave us on this population. I don't know how long the program has been in existence. But I really would like to have a better idea how many young people we're dealing with. Some of them have more than 2 years of interrupted education. And they come in, it's rare that you see, I think, an interrupted education child in elementary school. But we see that from third world countries. That's no longer rare. It used to be. No, not any longer. So when I was watching the video, the teacher said something interesting, that it took from September to May to get her identified, right? This is, unfortunately, this is not unusual, because I see this not just with this population, I see with our IEP populations too, our special education, where you have a child who probably did not come through us through kindergarten or pre-K. They come in second, third grade. They have not been assessed or vetted, right? And it takes a while. So in this situation, the same thing. So what I'm looking for is a couple of things. I'm trying to understand better who these kids are, geographically where they are, and whether or not we can reassess what we're doing with this population. Although I really applaud MCPS's support with the S-Life program, is that enough? Or can we look at a program like when they're about to turn 17 or 18, like a CREA program?
That's what I'm wondering as well, right? Is there an insert point at which we say, okay, wait a minute, we need to provide some additional kind of tangential support, right? Career readiness in a different way to that group, because we have that exit group of grade 12 where we're like, well, they're exiting because they're just not here with us anymore. It does not because the program worked for them or that they're going on to greener pastures necessarily. It's just that they're done here.
And I know, trust me, it's not lost in me that we're a county, we don't like to have these kind of programs or night school programs. Why do we need night school programs? Because we have populations of young people who might need it. And I'd rather have a group of young people who are prepared with a high school diploma and a trade that they can use for life than having exit our systems without even a high school diploma. Because I think long term, whether you look at it as whatever you want to look at it, economic wise, it's not good for the economy, so whatever you want to look at it, right? So this is one of those pain points that I really want us to look at as a system and just come to a realization that, we might just be putting a little Band-Aid on something that is much bigger than just a little cut. And if that's the case, because we're putting money into this program, correct? We have a funding set aside and so on. Is there something else that we can do to make the outcomes better? So if you can provide us with some data on this population, where they are, how long they've been with us, the cluster per cluster and so on, where some of these students are landing and so on. Because I can tell you from talking to principals, this is one of those things that principals will bring up and say, we don't think we're doing the best for these kids. And it pains me. We're not educators, but those who are and whose mission is to teach, right? I know this is a painful thing on their side. It pains them that they're not able to give their best to these students. And it's not maybe because they don't want to, it's because maybe we just don't have what they need in some of our schools. So we're trying, but I guess my question is trying enough, right? Is goodwill enough? Or do we want to see positive results for these young people who are not going to be young forever? They're going to be young adults. They're going to form families, to give them the skills that they're going to be able to have and use long term. So I want us to see the long-term investment, I guess is what I want to say. So if we can get more information on that population, I would really appreciate it. And to the folks who are these incredible counselors, the ETC counselors, I know they're under Margarita Bohorquez's shop. I have met quite a few of them. What an incredible group of human beings. Because a lot of these children and young adults have, and they come with some heavy-duty trauma that none of us would like to imagine ever going through or having any of our loved ones go through. And yet they deal with it every day. They're there every day, making sure that young people like the ones we saw in the video have a chance to be able to achieve, which is, the most wonderful thing that we can give our children, an education. And also just, to my colleagues, what a wonderful county that we live in, that we're able to have this incredible group of young people from all over the world. It warms my heart that we are able to work with them and to open our hearts and our arms and hug them and say, welcome, and you are going to be safe and loved in our community. And that's what MCPS stands for me, and I know stands for you. Thank you.
Thanks so much for this comprehensive packet, and I really enjoyed the videos. I would like to know more about, again, the cross-functional teams and how you are interacting. I know I got the chart here in the SLIFE part of the presentation, but what other kind of work are you doing with schools?
Sure. Thanks for the question. The CFTs have been phenomenal as a boon to providing us with the opportunity to connect with schools directly, both for getting us data about what's actually going on in school sites and also providing sort of that more micro level PD at the school sites. So before, whenever we ran a training, you'd go to the teachers. It may or may not be continued to follow through back at the school site. But because we have the CFTs now, which are being directed by the directors for the schools, they're incorporated as part of a greater program for the team. Our CFTs have been focused predominantly on the SIP goals for the schools, the school improvement plans. And a lot of the school improvement plans, because of the PL that our office was helping to coordinate with director teams around making sure that the leaders understand, here's why you're losing points on the Maryland State Report Card. It's actually the access and actually outside of the access assessment that you're losing a lot of points. And the conversation came up around long-term EMLs. Like, what does it mean to actually have a long-term EML in a school building? Why do I keep on losing points with these same kids? Here's what's going on. So each of these 13 CFTs were actually able to join the instructional leadership teams, sit down with admin to say, here's what's going on with your particular school. Now, because they're all cluster specific, some of this learning has happened at the cluster level, some of it has happened just at the admin teacher teams, but the CFTs have done a great job at sort of, no pun intended, translating what's actually going on with the Maryland State Report Card and looking at a content by content basis for each school site. So I would love to say that everyone is using the same approach, but what is consistent is that everyone is using the same lens to say, here's what you're losing points on the Maryland State Report Card in regards to EMLs. And here's something concrete that you could add to your school improvement plan to do something about it. So now the leaders, which is a big change, have a extra emphasis and focus on the EMLs in their building, and they know exactly who those students are and what they need. And what they need may actually be outside of the ELD courses and may actually be in the content courses. So the ELT CFTs have actually been supporting other content areas as well to try to train up those teachers so they know how to work with the EMLs in every context in the entire building.
I was hoping that you were going to say something that you said, that you're going into schools and looking at these long-term ELDs in each school. I am picturing a list of students and going in and saying, hey, we need a plan for these students. Maybe it's not like an IEP, but it is some kind of learning plan. And then I would assume you would then go check back and see if are that list of students still long-term, and where has the growth been? And if you see there's not been growth, go over some kind of strategies you can do. So that is really important work because it's on the ground in the school work. And if we're not doing that kid by kid, I don't think we're going to see the kind of growth we need to see. And it's a lot. But am I assuming, did I kind of describe that correctly? Or, okay, great. Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to see going over this year and see how that worked, because we are investing in these teams and we really do want to see results. Thanks.
Just before I make some data requests, I just want to kind of piggyback on something that Ms. Stewart said. Right, when our students have challenges, which sometimes people phrase as disabilities, they get a plan, right? It might be a 504 plan. It might be an individualized education plan. Is there an ELD plan? Like, is that a thing? So will each one of these almost 30,000 students then has their own, I don't want to call it an individualized plan because we use that vernacular for something else, but I mean, it's basically a kin, is that right?
So yes, so in Maryland, we do have an EML plan, but it's just for accommodations when it comes to state testing and for instruction.
Okay, but it's...
Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
So correct. So moving forward, we would like to design a more strategic plan per student. So we're in the infancy stages right now with the CFT members of developing individualized support for where the students are, looking at the domain-specific needs of students in content areas, and also if they qualify for designated support as well. But it's not as an IEP right now. That's not what it looks like.
But we are working just internally on our own because it's the right thing to do. We're working on enhancing what that plan looks like so that it has some domain-specific goals and things. So again, this is not an IEP under the law. That's not what we're talking about here, just so everyone's clear and so everyone knows I'm clear. But we're just talking about something that we've decided as a school system would help our students to be on track and help our staff to keep them on track, right? Okay.
And moving forward, we would like to strengthen these systems so it becomes something that is part of our fabric moving forward to support our EMLs. Yes.
And Catherine, correct me if I'm wrong. California has already developed this.
An EML plan. I will have to look into the EML plan for California. They have the highest number of EMLs and also the highest number of students exiting ELD services.
Right.
Together with New York, Texas, and a couple of other states. Again, states adopt laws for their particular state depending on the needs that they see. So for example, Florida, all teachers are dually endorsed to support EMLs.
Correct.
So, correct. So
Yeah, because I think in California they do have something. It's not like it's similar to an IEP, but it's for an EML learner to be able to guide us. It's like kind of like a guidance that is good for the parents. So you always know where your child is at or where the weaknesses are. So you can focus at home, so you can do vocabulary and all that stuff, which I think is amazing. And it's a guidance for the system to see also where that child might need support. And I think it's Orange County, don't quote me, but if you look into the Orange County, how they do it, and San Francisco has one for the Chinese immigrant population, because they also have a dual program that is, they follow each child. Each child has like their own plan in a sense that has the additional of information about that child might be special education as well. So they might have to make accommodations in Chinese for that child to take the test. But it's all very much together. It's not like a separate thing. And I'm hoping that with the diversity that we have in Montgomery County, with the many students that we have, that we can start coming to doing something similar like we see in other areas.
Yeah, and I will just say, I know certainly schools are expected to have EML plans. For any student who is EML has to have a plan. What I think we can do a much better job with is integrating that plan with their classroom teacher and ensuring that they are very familiar with, again, I think it all coincides with the growth targets, what are the specific goals and skills that we're going to have so that the two are very familiar with the expectations. So that is something we can certainly improve upon.
Right. It's not just by chance, but it's deliberate.
Correct.
To say, yeah. We agree. That's awesome. That's music to our ears in this committee.
You can tell, very excited.
Yes. Okay, well, thank you very much. I just want to make some data requests really quickly, and then we'll let everyone get on with their day. We have another hearing this evening. I know that we're really interested in the long-term EML students, and so if we could get that data, and this is referencing slide 18, by grade and cluster, so we can see if there are any geographic challenges as well. On slide 14, we were looking at the fiscal year 25 ESSA growth, categorized as met and not met. I'm interested in those students in 6th through 12th grade who have not met by school and grade. So school A, 6th grade, this many not met. School A, 7th grade, this many not met. And I think we can cluster them when we get to school, so we don't need to do it by cluster. Slide 16 is looking at exit, non-exit for access and alt. I would like to also see grades 6th through 12th by grade and school again. And I apologize, I don't have the slide, but it was the two-way immersion portion. I'd like to know if we have MCAP data for grades 3 through 5 by two-way immersion school. broken down by grade. And perhaps this isn't a clear data request, I know, but maybe you can just kind of think about if there's something that you could provide for us to better understand. I think that one thing that I know Ms. Stewart and myself are interested in is looking at the approach that's taken to support. So are students, for example, who are getting pulled out doing better than students who are maybe just in a big group, or where it's just integrated but not, just the different variations, right? Let's control for all the variables here and see, are there any patterns that we're seeing? And if my colleagues don't have any additional data requests, or if Ms. Farber doesn't have anything additional she think we should request, okay. Then I would just like to thank everyone for being here today, all of the MCPS staff that are here at the table and in the audience, as well as my own board staff here that are always here to support us. You've provided us with a really great deal of information on this really important work that all of you are doing, and I know it's not in isolation. There are many people who are not here today who also contribute to this work, and I appreciate that. So we just want to thank everyone for listening and watching and for all of your hard work, and we will see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.